This feels like the first day of school, doesn't it? So good morning, and welcome to the 2008 Convocation here at Portland State University. Most of you are returning for the 2008-2009 academic year, but for some of you, this is your first Convocation. And just out of curiosity, could we have all of you stand for whom this is your first Convocation? A special welcome to all of you. For those of you who are new, I'm Roy Cook. I'm the Provost and Vice President for Academic Affairs here at Portland State. And I have the privilege of saying a few words before we move on with our traditional convocation remarks by the President. For those of you who are like me and have been here for a while, you've noticed that Portland State has grown and changed considerably over the last several years. And given those changes and a few more recent ones, we're also changing the format of the convocation this year. In the past, we've recognized all new employees individually. As we've grown and more of you come on board each year, it becomes more and more difficult to do so. So we plan to have a series of smaller events during this year to welcome you in a little more intimate setting. Today, we're going to restrict the program to a brief overview of the past year, the recognition of the faculty and staff who received awards again this past year, and the President's convocation remarks. I want to remind all of you that beginning at 1 o'clock this afternoon, we'll have our fall symposium. It will be based around the President's remarks, and we'll talk about initiatives for the coming year and beyond. So I hope you've signed up for that. This being the kickoff of the academic year, you're no doubt expecting, or at least hoping for, an inspiring, intellectual, and upbeat message. Well, I've got good news and bad news. First, the bad news. Since I have the pleasure of leading off the day, the best you can probably hope for is the upbeat part, and I'm told I even have a problem with that sometimes. The good news is that President Wiewel will be delivering his first convocation address later in the program, and I think you will find that all of those qualities exist in his remarks. Before moving on with the program, I do want to make a few observations about our progress over the past year. A lot has happened. I know I said we're not doing introductions, but I do feel compelled to point out one of the most significant events over the past year, the selection of our new President, Wim Wiewel. Welcome to President Wiewel. You all have the opportunity to meet and talk with him at a reception at the end of the day following the symposium. For those of you who are not able to participate in the symposium, we do invite you back for the reception nonetheless. But we'll know that you weren't here at the symposium. We've all been working hard over the past year, and for many of us, long before that. It's good to know that as a result of all that good work and all those efforts, Portland State is receiving considerable national attention, as well as a lot of well-deserved local attention. Nationally, we've been identified by the U.S. News and World Report as one of the top up-and-coming universities in the country, number 7 to be exact, in case you're counting. You've got to love it when U.S. News and World Report gets it right. Of course, we're again recognized in 5 categories of the Programs to Look For section for our efforts around community engagement and undergraduate education. We do like to believe that they created this category because of the early work at Portland State that helped lead undergraduate educational transformation around the country. In addition to institutional recognition, quite a number of faculty, individual faculty, have been identified as national leaders for their activity. This is where I typically get in trouble, by actually identifying individual people and not everyone. I apologize to people who aren't identified, but I will nonetheless go forward with my prepared remarks. 5 faculty from Portland State received Fulbright fellowships to travel and study abroad last year. Professor Tom Johnson from the School of Business received the 2007 Deming Medal for his contributions to quality practice. And Professor Rob Dash of Electrical and Computer Engineering was recognized by the Semiconductor Research Corporation with its prestigious 2008 Technical Excellence Award for his research in integrated circuit testing. So our faculty are out and participating on the national scene and are very effective at doing so. There are, of course, many other examples, including those of you who serve in leadership roles of national organizations and those of you who have won nationally competitive grants, and they are far, far too numerous to mention individually. Over the past few years, we've been working with a set of academic priorities that have guided our various activities, both academic and otherwise. In his remarks today, President Wiewel will discuss how this work fits into a larger framework. And in this afternoon's symposium, Lindsay DeRoche, Cassie McVitie, and I will talk specifically about some progress we've made over the past few years in these areas. But for now, I want to use those priorities to organize a few comments about our other successes over the past year and identify a few real challenges we have as well. We have a strong institutional commitment to engagement. We believe it's a distinguishing feature of Portland State University. Annually, more than 8,200 PSU students, faculty, and staff formally engage in community partnerships. Its students contribute 1.3 million volunteer hours every year through the university's community-based learning programs. Over 1,000 community businesses and organizations and more than 1,000 partners have been served to benefit annually from these partnerships with our students and faculty. I would also point out that community-based learning is now an important performance criterion for Portland State University and will be factored into our performance-based funding in the next biennium. So we should pay particular attention to these kinds of activities. Over the past year, we've received national recognition for our engagement efforts, including being a regional winner and national finalist for the National Association of State Universities and Land-Grant Colleges McGraw Engagement Award. That's nostalgic to those of you who are into the acronym thing. We were one of 6 regional finalists. We did not win the final award. It was won by Virginia Tech, but we were there with Virginia Tech, Ohio State, and a number of others, indicating our national leadership in community engagement. We were also selected to receive the first ever United States National Jimmy and Rosalind Carter Partnership Award for Campus Community Collaboration. And it was presented to some of our faculty by the former president, Jimmy Carter, in Atlanta, Georgia. Both of these awards were based on the work of Barry Messer in Urban Studies and Planning and the Community Watershed Stewardship Program he leads, which is a collaboration with the City of Portland. We're also committed to improving student success by offering high-quality academic programs and providing support to students to complete their degree programs. An example of enhancing our academic programs has developed under the leadership of Sandra Friels. This fall, Portland State will begin to provide a unique opportunity for students as we create a Russian language flagship program funded by a $1 million grant from the National Security Education Program. By joining the National Language Flagship Program, PSU becomes one of a handful of schools in the country providing innovative language programs for students who want to develop superior language level proficiency while pursuing degrees in the academic majors of their choice. In addition, but related, 4 Portland State students received Fulbright fellowships to study abroad last year. Our students continue to excel on the national scene with their peers. Master of Urban and Regional Planning students George Zananovich and Matthew Burkow won the 2008 American Institute of Certified Planners Student Project Award for their project, The Oregon Land Use Stories. One measure of student success is graduation. Last year we had our largest graduating class, 4,700 students, including 53 doctoral students. Our student athletes are also successful. Over the past year, they've won 3 Big Sky titles, and our men's basketball team made their first ever trip to the NCAA tournament. Another measure of student success is through our alums, who were students at one time. We have many successful alumni stories. Here are just a few. Scott Davis, an undergraduate alum from our School of Business, was named the CEO of United Parcel Service. Joseph Librarian of the class of '69 was sworn in as the U.S. Ambassador to Qatar at the Simon Benson House on our campus this past July. And these are the kind of alums you have to love. Karen Brown Wilson and Michael Deshane, both alums of the College of Urban and Public Affairs, have made their second $1 million gift to CUPA this spring, launching a new program, Aging Matters, locally and globally. Despite our successes, we still face some significant challenges around student success, particularly when measured by retention and graduation rates. Neither of these measures improved last year, and we have to continue to work on this. It's not only important for our students, which is the primary reason, but again, it will be part of the performance funding activities of OUS. Our second priority was to expand our innovative research. Using only one measure last year, we exceeded $40 million in external funding for the first time, and we expect this to continue to grow. This was due to efforts of many faculty across the campus, and these funds significantly enhance our ability to contribute to the creation of knowledge. You're probably wondering why I have not yet mentioned the recent gift from the Millar Foundation to support our program efforts in sustainability. Well, now I have. You recall that last year we selected sustainability as the initial area for investment as we seek to expand our research contributions. This seemed to work out pretty well. Resulting from the, if the $25 million gift is any indication, Millar thought it was a good idea. And this will allow us to expand our capacity and capability in this important area. We hope that this is a model we can follow in other academic programs as well. Finally, we're committed to expanding opportunity for higher education in the Portland metropolitan region, including expanding participation and offering an appropriate array of academic programs for the population. There are quite a number of successes to report in this area. Carlos Crespo, professor of community health and director of that school, was just awarded a $1 million grant from the National Institute of Health called Portland Bridges to Baccalaureate, a partnership between Portland Community College and Portland State University, which will increase the number of underrepresented students transferring from PCC to PSU to pursue academic and scientific careers in the biomedical and behavioral sciences. Steve Reeder and Claire Strawn were awarded over $900,000 from the Federal Institute of Museum and Library Services to launch the Learner Web, an innovative internet and telephone access learning support tool to help youth and adults in self-directed education pursuits. In addition to these innovative activities, we've added several new degree programs over the past year. To name just a few, we've I guess, restarted, for those of you who have been here a long time, our Bachelor of Arts in Social Work program. We will begin next year the Master of Architecture program. Again, for those of you who have been here for a while, you realize that this has been a project in the making for some time, and we're very happy about that. We've been awarded, we've been allowed to begin a Master of Fine Arts in Creative Writing and a PhD in Mechanical Engineering, as well as several graduate certificates and a couple other undergraduate degree programs. Finally, to support addressing all of these priorities, we've committed to improving compensation and increasing faculty and staff. And we've made progress on all of these fronts. Not nearly as much as we'd like, but certainly progress was made over the past year. Our past biennium was very good for higher education, and the budget for Portland State improved, even if in a somewhat different way than we had predicted at the beginning. We saw increased allocation from the state, much of which was targeted for specific purposes, but some of that additional funding was withdrawn along the way from the salary pool and as a result of our enrollments during this past year. To compensate for those losses, we had reasonably good enrollments, not quite as high as expected, but slightly under 2% in student credit hours. It was a larger increase in non-resident students, however, and it produced somewhat larger revenues than projected, even though we lost some funding due to lower than expected resident student enrollments. We were able to add new faculty as a result of this funding. We made allocations of new positions throughout the academic year, and by the end of that year, 29 new tenure-track faculty positions were created, including 15 brand new positions. In addition to adding faculty, we added staff in a number of units across the campus as we continue the effort to build capacity to serve both students and faculty. Finally, we're all aware of the difficult and at times contentious process of salary negotiations that occurred last year. Thankfully, Due to the larger than anticipated tuition revenues from last year and anticipated increases in enrollment for this year, we were able to increase the allocation for salary and reach an agreement. We hope we're able to continue this progress in the future. In addition to state funding, our private fundraising increased 26% last year, and that doesn't include the Millar gift. And it was close to the largest year we've ever had. Finally, in addition to the progress on personnel and salary, we're moving forward with improving the physical campus for faculty, staff, and students. We've just reopened Shattuck Hall after a 2-year renovation. In addition to providing general classroom space, it will house the architecture department. And the renovation was specifically designed as a learning space for these students. The Academic and Student Recreation Center building construction is well along, and in addition to serving as a student recreation center, it will house the School of Social Work. As you all probably know, we will begin the renovation of Lincoln Hall as well, and within the next year, Science Building 2 as well. So there'll be a lot of work going on here at Portland State. We're also working with TriMet on the expansion of light rail. You might notice that traffic flow has improved around the campus since you were here in the spring, and we hope that that continues as that project nears its completion. So we've had a very eventful year, and we look forward to another one at least as exciting, if not more so. So with that as a summary of the past year, and again, I apologize for leaving out any significant events. There were simply too many to note. Let's move forward to the Faculty Excellence Awards. Each year, we recognize 4 faculty and staff for their outstanding contributions to the university. As we look forward to the new academic year, let's begin by recognizing last year's recipients of these awards. The Branford Price Millar Award is given annually to the faculty member who has demonstrated excellence in the areas of scholarship, instruction, and university service and public service, and whose performance in these areas of scholarship and research or other creative activity is judged to be exceptional. Branford Price Millar was the 3rd president of Portland State College, serving from 1959 to 1968. Described as intelligent, unpretentious, and principled, Millar was a Harvard-educated scholar of English literature devoted to the liberal arts as the foundation of a college or university. This year's recipient of the award is Eileen Brennan, professor and associate dean for academic and community affairs in the School of Social Work at Portland State. She has served Portland State University, for 21 years. Her demonstrated excellence has been particularly remarkable in her ongoing contributions in the area of scholarship, instruction, and dedication to high-quality education. She continues to pursue research on early childhood, work, and family issues. Professor Brennan is a dedicated and respected teacher in the School of Social Work's master's and doctoral programs, and one of its most successful advisors of PhD students. Professor Brennan's impressive scholarly and research record, her dedication to high-quality education, and the passion and commitment she brings to university and community service constitute the very qualities embodied in the Branford Price Millar Award. Dr. Brennan, would you like to say a few things?
Thank you, Provost Cook. I'm pleased to be joining Arthur Emlin, Barbara Friesen, and Nancy Koroloff as the 4th School of Social Work faculty member to receive the Millar Award. Although our scholarship has really focused on different areas of study, we have one thing in common. Our work was a product of the Regional Research Institute for Human Services, the research arm of our school, since 1972. The RRI has prospered over these years, bringing in over $60 million in grants and contracts and serving as the base for over 200 separate research projects. Currently, the RRI has $10 million in sponsored projects for this current year and 60 projects. But the success of the RRI shouldn't be measured by the number of grants and contracts and the funding that it's secured, but rather by the difference that it has made for individuals, families, and communities. I think that the RRI makes a difference because, first of all, our researchers involve consumers of human services in all aspects of our research. Secondly, our researchers collaborate with the community, national, and international partners. And thirdly, they engage in research to produce real change and to promote social justice. For the past 15 years, Julie Rosenzweig and I have engaged in research with families raising children who have emotional or behavioral disorders. This work has been generously supported by the National Institute of Disability and Rehabilitation Research through the Research and Training Center on Family Support and Children's Mental Health. What we've learned, in short, is that 1 in 10 employees in the United States is caring for a child with a disability, and their work-family situation can and needs to be improved with changes in workplace policies and access to community resources. Our team of investigators have listened to parents' stories of cutting back hours, quitting, or being fired from jobs because of their children's special needs. These parents shaped our research questions, participated in data gathering, collaborated in data analysis, and co-authored reports. We know that family involvement has greatly increased the relevance and impact of our research team's studies. Our investigations have also benefited from partnerships with organizations such as World at Work, the Alliance for Work-Life Progress, and the Work Family Network of the Sloan Foundation. Workplaces and child care centers have welcomed our research team to talk to their employees so that they could better understand how to address issues of families raising children with mental health difficulties. These families and community partners have spurred us on to get their stories out to the press and to policymakers. We are determined to follow in the footsteps of other RRI researchers and engage in research that produces social change that sustains these families. Finally, many thanks to Portland State for recognizing this work through the Millar Award. Thank you.
The George C. Hoffmann Award is given annually to a faculty member in recognition of distinguished contributions to the university in the areas of instruction, university service, and scholarship, which are done in the spirit of humanism, civility, collegiality, with particular dedication to students and loyalty to the university. Values especially cherished by the late George C. Hoffmann, a distinguished dean and professor of history at Portland State University. The recipient of this year's award is Grant Farr, Associate Dean of the College of Liberal Arts and Sciences and Professor of Sociology. Professor Farr has served Portland State University for 33 years. His impeccable service record and leadership skills reveal a staggering level of university citizenship. In the words of his supporters, Grant's loyalty to Portland State and its values and his unwavering dedication to his students form the very heart of his identity as a professional and as a human being. Please join me in welcoming Grant Farr.
Thanks, Roy, for the introduction. I'm really honored to be here. This is kind of an emotional time for me. I have been here 33 years. It seems like only a day has gone by, or hardly a day has gone by during this time. I want to thank a lot of people. I want to thank Professor Seppalainen, certainly one of the most understood people at Portland State, kind of the Mad Finn, we call him, for nominating me. And I also like to thank my adopted Department of Philosophy, which I enjoyed running for a year and a half, as well as my Department of Sociology, and of course all my friends across campus who put me up to this. I also like to give a nod to my posse that I hang out with, John Reuter and Dee Thompson. They go by J. Rue and D. Tom on the street, you know, in case you happen to see them. And also to the Library Steps gang that we hang out in the summer. And Jackie's Balzer's joined us out there. That's good to see. You know, I'm old enough to know George Hoffmann, and I'm particularly privileged to get this award. George was the dean that hired me, and I enjoyed his company greatly and what he's done. You know, we're all here because of the students, And one thing that I've noticed over the years is that different faculty are attracted and motivated and inspired by different kinds of students. I think to a lot of faculty, the students that inspire them the most are the students who are academically oriented, who do well, who are high achievers. And it may be because these students remind them of themselves at an earlier period when they were younger and are going through the same thing. But these aren't the students that inspire me. The students that inspire me are the ones that struggle, the ones who come to school and don't necessarily have the social capital is the word we're using now, but the skills, the background, the family, the social class to allow them to be successful. They're hard workers. These aren't lazy people. And we find that given a chance that these students are quite successful. These are the students that motivate me. And maybe it's because they remind me of a younger Grant Farr 40, 50 years ago when I was a student. And so, you know, these are the students that I think about, and I find them in several places. I find the Grant Farr students among returning women who've raised a family and are coming back. They're always our best students, but they lack the confidence and the social skills. As I had one mother say to me, you know, when your teenage kids say to you, "Oh, mother, you're so dumb," so many times you start to think it. I find the Grant Farr students among international students who come to America and don't necessarily understand the way things work. I find the Grant Farr students among minority students who come from different backgrounds, different understandings. And I find the Grant Farr students among our athletes who come to school to play football or basketball or softball and suddenly realize they have to go to class too. And they struggle. But a lot of them become good students. Now, I'm not saying our athletes aren't good students, but I'm saying that they're the people that I enjoy working with. And if you ever walked across the park blocks with me, and some of you have, walk around the park blocks, you know that we're going to, and I recommend walking around the park blocks to a lot of people if you really want to get to know Portland State, that we're going to, if you're going to walk around the park blocks with me, we're going to hug a football player, get ready, and we're going to high-five a basketball player and shake the hands of a softball player, and we're not talking about golf and track and the rest of them. And we're going to encourage them to go to class and be good students. I'm going to tell them that we care about that. So my heroes at Portland State are the people who do that. My heroes at Portland State are Pete Collier, who's working with first-generation students to help them succeed. My hero at Portland State is Dalton Miller Jones, who's incredible, and we're glad to have Dalton back, by the way, who had a little minor surgery this last month or so. And Dalton, in all his busy time, is trying to get these students to school, to figure out a way to help students get in the pipeline. And my heroes are Gwen Schusterman, who works her tail off to get students through beginning chemistry. It drives her nuts to help students be successful. And my heroes are Kim Hoddle, who tries to get these knucklehead athletes to go to class and works hard at that. So my heroes at Portland State are those students, those people who work with these Grant Farr students who help them succeed. And I ask this, as we think about what we are and what we want to be as a university, and we talk about let knowledge serve the city, leadership and engagement, sustainability, and we look to spires of excellence in our PhD programs, all of these noble causes, that we also remember the students who come and struggle, and that Portland State's a place where they can come and be successful, and that we're proud of that and not embarrassed. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Grant. The Butler Award is given annually to recognize excellence of library service to students, faculty, and patrons of the Branford P. Millar Library. Kenneth Butler retired from the faculty in 1987 after 33 years of dedicated service, and along with his wife, Elsie, a children's librarian and strong library supporter, established this fund. We're saddened by the passing of Elsie in these past few months. This year's recipient is Linda Absher, assistant professor, humanities reference librarian, and interim public access services librarian. With only 6 years of service thus far at Portland State, her nomination portfolio for the Butler Award is a testament to her outstanding performance as a member of the library faculty. She has a commitment to collaboration and service that is evident in her interaction with colleagues and her engagement with library users. Linda?
Thank you, Provost Cook. I would also like to thank the library, Kenneth Butler, and the late Elsie Butler for honoring me with the Butler Award. The award is given annually for, and I'm quoting the press release here, outstanding performance as a member of library faculty. Performance as a member of library faculty. That sounds rather nebulous, doesn't it? But what does it really mean? Does it mean I can divine the mysteries of all things library? That I know and can explain the difference between reference and reserves? That I don't bat an eye when a student walks up to me at the reference desk and states with absolute certainty that they can't find a single thing for their assignment. It means all of that and more. It means we at the library can help you and your students navigate the library. We can help make your students better researchers by teaching them to think deliberately about where to find information and even about the quality of the information they come across during the research process. For faculty, we can assist you in your research, locating materials and resources within and beyond the library. We also, with your help, work towards building a collection, both online and print, that supports the research and curriculum needs of the Portland State University community. So that's how I view performance by library faculty. But all of us at the library, faculty and staff alike, strive to support and enrich the learning experience for students and faculty. I look forward to meeting and working with you and your students in the upcoming year. Thank you.
And finally, and related to Grant's Library Stairs group, the Mary H. Cumpston Award for service to students is given annually to a university administrator who has demonstrated excellence in the area of service to students. The late Mary H. Cumpston, former Career Center director, was a beloved colleague whose enduring contributions to Portland State and to the community have enhanced the development and delivery of student services. This year's recipient, Dee Thompson, current director of the Career Center, has served the university for more than 25 years. She's been a consistent and positive presence in the lives of PSU students, faculty, and staff, and in her role as director has applied her passion for serving students directly to the development of new programs, relationships, and resources. Dee?
Thank you. This is quite a privilege to be honored in this way, since I worked for Mary from 1981 till her retirement in 2000. Several years ago, a few of my colleagues and I got together and thought about the Mary Cumpston Award for Service to Students as a great way to recognize what Mary had done here. I never dreamed when I was helping create this award that I would be one of the recipients. I learned many things from Mary Cumpston, and perhaps the most important thing that I learned from her was how crucial it is to build relationships across the campus, not just in student services, so that those of us who do work in student services can really accomplish our work. All of us who work in this area, whether we're working in admissions, in advising and academic support, in residence life, in student development, in health and counseling services, in the Career Center or any other student affairs office. All of us have one goal, and that goal is to help our students accomplish something, what they came here for. We want them to be successful. And the way we do our work is by working together with our colleagues to ensure that our students will reach their individual goals. So what is most meaningful to me about this award is that I believe it's not about me, but really what it is about is my colleagues across the campus and all the work that they do. So first, I want to thank them and recognize them. First, I'd like to thank my colleagues in the Career Center, the most amazing and unique group of people I've ever known. I'm very fortunate to be part of the Career Center, and anything I've accomplished is because of their dedication. I also want to thank the Student Affairs leadership team. And in particular, I'd like to thank Dan Fortmiller, a friend and colleague for many years, who has created such a wonderful environment for us in student affairs over this last 3 years of his work. I also want to thank all my colleagues across the campus and for everything that all of you do every day to make our students successful. I truly believe it is about us working together as a team. And I want to say one of the things Grant neglected to mention about his gang is that he goes by the name of G-Dog. Thank you very much.
Congratulations to all of the faculty and staff who have been recognized by their colleagues over this past year. Now I'd like to introduce Robert Mercer. Robert is Assistant Dean in the College of Liberal Arts and Sciences and this year's presiding officer of the Faculty Senate, to provide a few words of welcome and to introduce our convocation speaker for the day.
Well, I ran into the president in the hallway yesterday, and we talked a little bit about convocation and about my introductory remarks. And he said, well, Robert, you know, I find that if an introduction goes more than about 50 minutes, you start to lose people's attention. So I'm thinking probably I want to cut that down a little bit, since that would take up the rest of our time. As the presiding officer of the Senate this year, I want to welcome everyone to a wonderful, exciting new year. And I want to say that for all of us who have interacted thus far with our new president, whether it was through the interview process or from before his first official day on campus, he has sought out as many opportunities as possible to engage with faculty, and those conversations have been genuine. The kinds of questions he asked demonstrate a keen intelligence, a wonderful sense of humor, and a real concern for faculty and staff and an understanding of PSU's mission. So for the rest of the 45 minutes, I'm simply going to say I want to welcome, and please all of you, welcome our new PSU president, Wim Wiewel.
Isn't this fun? Isn't this just the best? You know, on Saturday, my family and I helped the new students move in. And then this morning, I spoke at the orientation day for the international students. And those two events, along with listening to the wonderful achievements that Provost Koch mentioned, and then listening to Grant and Lee and Eileen and Dee, and the kind of passion they bring to this enterprise, it just makes so vivid what a truly noble calling this is. As I've been saying about the presidency, it is true for everybody here, this is not a job, this is a life. And you exemplify that in your presence here, in the kind of passion and emotion you bring to talking about what you do, and in what I have seen during these past weeks that I've had the privilege to get to know you, this university, and now increasingly the students as well. I could not have wished for anything more, and I could not be prouder of being here with you all and looking forward to what I am sure will be a wonderfully exciting and productive time. The welcoming and warm acts that we have experienced have just been amazing. From Kirby from the help desk, who was on the phone till 11 o'clock at night with my 16-year-old trying to figure out how to get the wireless working in the house. And it was a good choice to be on the phone with my 16-year-old, because being on the phone with me would have been quite a waste of time. Noelle, who opened her house to hundreds of Portlanders last Saturday to show people what a sustainability and sustainable community really looks like. All the bike enthusiasts who wasted no time pointing out that my bike had been assembled wrong when I rode it with Sam Adams. And I learned that biking is not just a mode of transportation, it's not just a sport, but it truly is a religion. All of those who sent flowers or gifts or other expressions of your support to our home or to our office, thank you so very much. And thank you so very much to all of you also who keep coming up to me and reintroducing you, because I'm still learning all these many names and faces. But I'm making progress. I will get there. I want to talk with you today, and it's really the beginning of a dialogue. Obviously, it's a little hard to have a real, in-time dialogue with 400 or 500 people. So I'll be doing some talking now, but this afternoon, we will be breaking out into smaller discussion groups and really have a chance to talk. At the same time, many of the things that I'll be saying today are really based on the conversations that many of you have had, not just over the past year, perhaps most intensely over the past year, but really over many years in thinking about what this university is and where it could go. I want to start just a little bit to talk about my reading of the history of Portland State, because I think it's important always, and especially since there are new people here, to share our sense of history and our interpretations, not to be caught or limited by it, of course, but of course to learn from it. So we're not caught by it, and so we're not forced to repeat it. As I read the history, and I've been reading this wonderful book, The College That Would Not Die, as well as talking with people, I'm just struck by this idea that this has been an institution of struggle and hope. The struggle to establish the place in the first place. Stephen Epler had 3 months to find space, recruit students, recruit faculty, develop a curriculum, and get going. How's that for academic processes? He probably violated some rules about faculty shared governance, but he got the place up and running in 3 months. The struggle then after the flood to find a new place to go. The efforts of the alumni, the early alumni, to work with the state legislature, to get us Lincoln High School as a first location, to get the approval to actually begin to offer our own degrees instead of making people go to one of the other institutions to actually finish up. The struggle to become an actual university and begin to offer graduate degrees. You all know that none of these things came easy. It was struggle and it was hope. It was the idea that this could be a place that was more than perhaps others thought it ought to be. Realizing that people of this city and this region deserved more than having a second-rate or third-rate institution. And one of the things that I hope to make us feel that we're now getting to the place where, yes, there will always be struggle, but it won't be just about hope, but it will also be about glory. We are a great university. We are a great urban research university. We're not just trying to become one. We're not the stepsister. We're not the younger sibling. We're not just the also-ran. All the evidence that we heard this morning shows that this is a great urban research university, and we deserve the glory that goes with that. Now, as you know, there's always enough to talk about problems as well. Glory does not come without its price. We have great challenges in higher education today, as we always have. I don't think there's been a year since probably 1940s and maybe going back before that, where there wasn't some report that had some title like The Gathering Storm, or The Crisis of Higher Education, or Is There Hope? And this is no different. But it doesn't mean the challenges aren't real. I think about the challenges in 5 ways, and there are other ways to cut it. I think about it in 5 key ways. The first one is the challenge of affordability, which on the one hand is a challenge of affordability for those who want to come to school. On the other hand, it's a challenge of the great cost increases that those who want to come to school see, and that therefore they criticize. Now, we know that some of that perception that higher education is very expensive is based on misrepresentation in the media and misunderstandings. Because what the papers like to write about is that it costs, $35,000 or $38,000 to go to Harvard or Georgetown, and then you got to add another $13,000 for room and board, so it's $50,000. That perception is amazingly widespread. I met just a week ago with one of our own state representatives, and when I mentioned to her that tuition and fees at Portland State are about, for a full-time undergraduate, are about $5,700, $5,800. She was stunned. She thought it was actually at least twice as much. This was a state representative, a state senator, actually, I think. So there's a lot of misperception about that. But that does not mean that it hasn't become a lot more expensive. In fact, over the last 20 years, the tuition, and again, just looking at full-time undergraduate, has gone up by 92%. 92% in 20 years. The absolute amount of that, actually, in 2007 dollars, is $2,200. Tuition was quite low. $2,200 absolute amount in 2007 dollars. During that same time, the amount of per student aid that we get directly from the state has gone down by 29%, which happens to be $2,000. So we're $200 ahead, folks. We're $200 ahead to meet all the increased demands that are put upon us compared to 20 years ago. That doesn't give a lot of leeway, but it has led to both a huge perception problem, and of course it reflects an absolutely horrible, mistaken, and misguided switch from the perception of education as a public good to education as a private good. Now, this will become, and I will turn back to this when we talk about our goals for the year, will of course be an area of major focus. So the first challenge in higher education that all institutions face, and but we face it particularly here in Oregon, is affordability. The next one that is closely associated with that is access. Of course, one part of the access issue is the money. But there's another part that comes with the access challenge, which is the changes in the nature of the population. That the people who are now in high school, the people who are coming out of high school, are different in many ways than the people 20 or 40 years ago. And that all institutions have trouble adjusting to that. You've all read the data about college readiness, the number of minority students in high schools now. So how to educate the new demography, the new people who come to college, in an era in which more and more people, in fact, need college degrees to be successful at all in the economy, is clearly a second major problem and challenge for all of us. The third big challenge is accountability. Ironically, as the public has done less and less to support higher education, the demands for accountability have gone up more and more. As the challenge of whom we educate has gone up more and more, the demands for accountability go up. And so we, in fact, have to spend that $200 that we get more in part to write reports and hire more people to measure everything that moves and a whole bunch of things that don't. Nevertheless, accountability, how can we, as academics, not agree with the idea of accountability? How can we say, well, what we do is so obscure and so obtruse that you can't really in any way measure it? I mean, that goes against everything we stand for. We are, after all, about trying to understand who we are, how we do it, and how results get created. So we have to do it, both for intellectual honesty reasons, as well as, frankly, politically expedient reasons. Without it, we will not survive as institutions. This is a national movement, this is a local movement, and have no illusion that regardless of which party controls Congress or sits in the White House, the accountability movement will only become stronger and stronger, so we have to keep working on that. The fourth major challenge in higher education, I would say, is the rapid technological change. Now, in many ways, I also find this a challenge that's an opportunity, because it is exactly the rapid technological change that makes it so clear that you need knowledge to succeed. Rapid technological change is an inherent part of the knowledge economy, and it's because the knowledge economy is so important that universities have become so important. So we should not regret that. We should embrace it. But nevertheless, we also have to pay for it while we embrace it. We have to be willing to learn how to use it. We have to be willing to think about new ways to teach and to administer and to reach out and to communicate. Because certainly those kids that were checking in on Saturday, they know how the new technologies work. My 16-year-old, he knows how the new technologies work. And they're the students that we are educating. And that's also what the business sector and the public sector expect in terms of how we run our business, doing it in the ways that take advantage of all that. The fifth challenge is what I would describe as the increased societal expectations. Universities increasingly are expected to help solve pretty much everything. We are expected to contribute to economic development. Of course, we're supposed to solve global warming. We're supposed to educate our students so that they will really become citizens and have civic commitment. And you name, we're also supposed to solve the alcohol abuse problem, by the way. We are being asked to do more and more, and again, without getting the resources that go with that. Now again, having those expectations is not all bad. For a university like this, that has always been about engagement, if we really believe, as Sheldon Hackney, the president of UPenn, said, that knowledge advances most when it grapples with the biggest social problems, then we cannot hesitate to step forward and take on these big social problems, these big social issues. But nevertheless, it forces us to continually rethink who we are, how we do it, and how we proceed, and how we really meet that challenge, and what we need to do that in the best possible way. And of course, the Millar Foundation grant is just one example of how others are indeed willing to step forward and help us do this. Now, so we have a history and we have major challenges. So how do we move forward? Well, fortunately, you've all been spending a lot of time already in thinking about how we ought to move forward. The planning themes that I will be talking about now really derive from the work that the institution has been engaged in, especially over the past year. You identified engagement as a lead concept, you defined specific goals, and you have a long history. Based on that, we've had some meetings with the executive committee to think about how we can capture this and pull this together in a way that allows us to move forward. When I met with the search committee, at one point, I asked them, whether there is a strategic plan for Portland State, because I had not been able to really find on the website something that was explicitly labeled the strategic plan of Portland State. And I got a very funny answer. I got one person saying, no, we don't. Another person saying, yes, we do. And a third person said, well, kinda. I think that was Roy. So I thought, well, if people on the search committee can't agree whether we have a strategic plan, we probably really don't. So I went in with the assumption that one of the first things I would invite all of you to do to join me in doing a strategic planning effort. I got some pushback on that. And some of my colleagues, not at Portland State, said, well, you know, you don't necessarily want to start with that because you don't really know enough yet to do it very productively. Well, I know you will all be very sorry to hear this, but I have come to the conclusion that starting a whole full-bore, full-scale strategic planning process is not the way to go right now. I'm sorry. Apologies to my fellow planning faculty here. But it's become clear to me that a lot of planning has been going on, that we can, in fact, broaden that a bit with some of the things that have been going on, and talk about the general directions, and then engage in what I would like to call an articulated incremental planning process. Is that okay, Ethan? Will that fly? An articulated incremental planning process where we will do segmental plans in a number of areas and use that really to communicate on an ongoing basis about our directions. And I think in the end that will work better. Let me lay out some of the key components that we already have in place, some of the key components that might yet to be done, and then invite you really in the dialogue this afternoon to continue to add to that as well. And I should repeat that while I will lay out sort of the broad outlines, the session this afternoon will start with 3 of the vice presidents laying out even more details of what's already sort of on the plate and on the docket, and then we will continue, initiate the discussion. The 5 themes that I would like to propose to you as a way of capturing what this institution is about and we will be about, at least for the foreseeable future, are as follows. The first one is provide civic leadership through partnerships. Now, this is hardly new. In fact, in 1975, President Wiewel had as the theme for his inauguration, vital partners, the university and the city. So here we are, 33 years later. There's nothing new under the sun. But nevertheless, things do change. I think so far, the notion of the engaged university has been talked about in the context of the relationship between our research and our teaching and the community. How we serve that community, disciplinia serviat urbi. You know, thinking about how we directly connect. I want to take it a step further to the notion of civic leadership. And it's based on the idea that universities, along with health centers and some other institutions, have become the urban anchor institutions. Back in the 50s and 60s, urban anchor institutions were the local bank, the utility company, the newspaper, the department store, the local manufacturing company. Funny thing happened on the way. All of those guys went bankrupt or got bought out by international companies or companies located in Charlotte, North Carolina, or Minneapolis, or New York, or LA. They are no longer truly local anchors. Who are the ones that are left behind? It's us. It's institutions like us. Not just in the small college towns that were always dominated by the university, but in many cities like Boston, Philadelphia, New York, not so much New York, Baltimore, Chicago, Indianapolis, St. Louis, and Portland. Universities and health centers are among the major anchors, the largest employers, and therefore we need to step up to the plate in a very different way than we used to. we have to think about our responsibility for the future of this region beyond the work that a specific class may do, beyond the work that a particular faculty member does, even though those are absolutely critical and incredibly important. But it goes beyond that to really saying we need to play this leadership role with the other major organizations and corporations in town to think about where this region is headed. Because as the region goes, so will we, and as we go, so will the region. So that's a big part of it, along with all the other parts that have always been part of the engaged urban university notion. The valuing of the work that we do by bringing the region and its issues into our curriculum, doing that in a way that is, as we say, both locally relevant and globally important. This will be a major emphasis of what I'm looking for. It's, of course, been a major part of my background as an academic and as an academic leader, but it's very clearly also something that the president alone does not do it. I have seen it already in the involvement that many of your deans have in all kinds of civic and business organizations and cultural organizations in this metropolitan area. The faculty that I've run into at every meeting I go. The students and alumni, of course, that we see and that staff and run so many organizations. They're all examples of Portland State taking and continuing to fulfill that civic leadership role. The second theme we call enhancing the student experience. Because ultimately, you cannot be a legitimate civic leader if you don't perform your core mission right. And while we put civic leadership first, because I think it distinguishes in a way that other things don't, the core mission of the university, of course, is enhancing the student experience, providing our students with the best possible experience, because that involves both teaching and research. It is who we are as a university. And I think you all know that we have challenges in that regard. Many of us, many of you, are doing a fantastic job. Much of how we operate does a great job. But nevertheless, we have some results that are not what they should be. And I've been saying that, and I know you know it. A 38% six-year graduation and retention rate is simply not acceptable. And all the reasons that may have been offered to explain that, many students come here not expecting to graduate, people have challenges in work, people have challenges in family, we've become too expensive. They're all true, but they're just as true for many of our peer schools, whether it's Arizona State, California, San Diego, University of Illinois, Chicago, SUNY Buffalo, Missouri, St. Louis, and nevertheless, they managed to have graduation rates of 50%, with, frankly, populations that are, I would say, not just similar, but in many ways, frankly, more challenging. More minority students, more students from public school systems that really make the Portland public schools look really good. So we got work to do here. There is a plan that is being developed for that. We will work hard on that, and I think it may well be the single most important thing we do on the academic side. If we do not, over the next period, and I don't want to put a precise year on it, partly because the six-year graduation and retention rate obviously takes a long time to trickle through the system, but if we're not well on our way to reaching that 50% within about the next 6 years, I think we will not be doing our job. There are other parts of enhancing the student experience, making sure there is a welcoming environment for students of all groups and with all the diversity, making sure, of course, that we have enough faculty to teach the classes, that we have enough staff to provide the advising. I know that there are many things that have been happening in the funding climate that have had a directly negative effect on our ability to succeed in this retention and graduation. It's not because people have not been trying, but we have to focus it and do more. The third theme we call achieving global excellence. And of course, it's already reflected in the statement that I mentioned earlier about doing work that is locally relevant and globally important. But the main point to me is, and it goes back to the history of this institution, that the residents of the Portland area deserve a public university that is not just adequate, but that is excellent. And we need to strive for that excellence. Now, excellence means a couple of things, really. On the one hand, I think one way to think about it is it means mindfulness about a lot of the work that we do. How can we, in every daily activity that we undertake, all the business processes that we engage in, the physical environment that we offer people, how can we strive to really reflect that we strive for excellence? We may not always achieve it, but that we always strive for it and have very high standards for ourselves and for others. I go around, when I walk around this campus, and I see a piece of paper or gum wrapper, I pick it up. Now, if all of us do that, it'll be a very clean campus. Now, this is not a bad campus, but there are pieces of paper, gum wrappers to pick up here and there. And you also know, broken window theory, that, the cleaner you keep it, the cleaner it will stay. The more you let dirt accumulate, the more people will say, who cares, I'll throw it down. And, this is just a little example, of course, but we can apply that same notion to the substance of our work, not just the physical appearance of the trash. Another very important part, a more important part ultimately, of achieving global excellence, of course, is to invest in our research. That's where we really have the greatest opportunity to show the world what we're really about. Achieving global excellence there also means that you have to make choices. We cannot invest in everything equally and expect global excellence. So it involves hard choices. You all made that hard choice as a planning group last year when you decided that sustainability would be the first area of real concentration. There may be others coming up in the future, but that would be that first area of concentration. And it's a wonderful choice, of course, because it harmonizes so well with what this region is known for. And in that sense, it also connects up very closely with our civic leadership notion. Another area in which we will pursue excellence is in the collaboration with the Oregon Health and Science University, which will allow us opportunities in the life sciences and a number of other areas. It's not just those that count. There are others already going on. I had a wonderful meeting yesterday, very brief, in the engineering college, finding out about pieces of equipment that can measure things that I didn't even know existed. And in fact, I think the engineers aren't sure they exist, but they want to find out whether they do or not. We already do have many areas of excellence, and we will have more, but that is the quest to really make sure that we will be known for several things globally. We will have faculty coming to us because we're known for it. We will have students coming to us because we're known for it, and so on. And this, of course, involves increasing our number of students from abroad, increasing the number of students from out of state, while continuing to serve the access mission that Graham talked about so eloquently. The fourth theme ties to that directly. It's called enhancing educational opportunity. We are not just here to do well for those who are here now, but to do well for those who would like to come here. Enhancing the educational opportunity means that we got to work closely with all of our partners in the whole P through 20 system. I've already agreed with Carol Smith, the superintendent of the Portland Public Schools, to form a joint task force that will be charged to come up by December with a strategic plan for how we can enhance the collaboration between Portland State and the Portland Public Schools. We're already doing very many things, and they're excellent things. They do not yet hang together in a coherent and strategic whole, and I'm not sure that in all cases they address the key strategic challenges that the Portland Public Schools face. So we will be thinking of ways to enhance that and focus that will both frankly, bring visibility and renown to the university, but more importantly, it will improve the quality of the schools, which, of course, is a very important part of our future. Enhancing educational opportunity also means serving the kind of students that we attract better. I've been talking in that context about increasing the amount of online learning that we offer. If we aim to be accessible for adult professionals who work and have families, we cannot tell people, yes, we will be accessible, but only if you can come here every Tuesday and Thursday between 4 and 6. I've had a fair amount of experience with online learning at my previous institution. I know it can work just as well, and for some students far better than in-class learning. It's doable organizationally, technologically, financially. We'll work on the details of that. There are many different ways of doing it, but it is one important way of expressing to the community that we truly, really want to serve them, not just on our terms, but on the terms that people increasingly are used to dealing with their life. You know, how many of you still walk to a travel agent who's only open 2 times a week to book your next trip? You know, you want to be able to go to Sidestep or whatever and get it done that way. We should be thinking that same way. The final theme that we talk about, surprise, surprise, relates to acquiring resources and being effective in how we use it. Truly, I've shared with some of you that the issue that gave me most pause in deciding whether I would accept this job was finding out that higher education is funded so poorly. I see others nodding here. They probably, you know, maybe some of you said, we shouldn't have come, but higher education is poured enormously, very poorly. It's ridiculous. 46 in the nation. It's a disgrace. And I will make that point as often as I can, diplomatically perhaps at times, or bluntly other times. Yesterday, one of my colleagues told me that I can be pleasantly blunt, or maybe bluntly pleasant. I forget what it was. I'm trying to be straightforward and make it clear. And it requires great advocacy. Now, ultimately, we will not be able to solve, really, the issues that we face of insufficient faculty, class sizes are too large, insufficient staff support, and buildings that aren't sufficiently maintained with the current fiscal structure of the state of Oregon. It cannot be done, no matter how eloquent an advocate one is, because you're competing with a lot of other very worthwhile uses, and there is only so much money around. So a true solution, a progress to a solution, will require changes in the fiscal structure of the state. That's not going to happen overnight, but I think it will happen. And certainly listening to the governor and other elected leaders, I think there is a great sense, as well as listening to the business community, there's a great sense that this needs to happen, that awareness of it is growing, and a big part of my job and my other colleagues in the higher education system and the whole P through 20 system will be to vociferously make that case in as many ways as we can, and frankly, as strategically and smartly as we can. That doesn't help us this year or next biennium. That's a long-term project. In the short term, of course, we will advocate as strongly as we can to get the resources that we are entitled to not have, frankly, crazy things where we got punished this year for falling short a little bit on our number of resident students when PSU hadn't been adequately funded for all the students that had been adding the last 6 years. So they hadn't given us the money for all that time, and now we had to give back a little bit because we gave them back some of the students that they never paid us for in the first place. In addition to advocating for the state resources, of course, we will be looking for other sources. As I said before, I was lucky rather than smart to be able to announce the Millar Foundation grant. But we got it not because I was lucky, but because so many of you were smart. Because you have been working in this area and have been creating the credibility and the promise, so that when those 5 trustees thought about which institution they could make the biggest difference for, they thought of Portland State. And that is a credit to all the work that's been going on these past decades at this institution. And there are others out there. There are others out there, maybe not with $25 million, but with smaller amounts, with a whole variety of projects. We've been getting calls from companies and others who want to partner with us. So I think this will indeed open up a whole bunch of new opportunities. And I ask all of you to aggressively take advantage of that, to go out perhaps to places that in the past didn't want to listen to you, that in the past thought you were only kind of an also-ran, because the Millar grant gives us a level of visibility that we just did not have and opens the door to new opportunities. In addition to that, there are private donors, not just foundations, but private individuals, not just alumni, although we have not tapped the alumni anywhere near enough, and we will be working on that. But the wonderful thing about being the major public university in a major metropolitan area is that there are many people who never went here who know that we are an integral part of the civic structure, and that therefore they need to support us, and we're getting that level of receptivity. We will need our own to increase our own efforts in terms of external funding. I think that we should be reaching about $100 million in external funds over the next, again, 6 years. Roy's looking nervous. 6 years, 8 years, at some level, the precise year does not matter. As long as we make that clear progress to increasing the external funding, both to be able to attract our graduate students that we need, to get the national visibility, and of course to contribute substantively to the solution to issues that we're facing here in this region. And finally, in terms of resources and resource acquisition, we will continue to try to be really smart about the development, about how we expand, how we fund our projects. And again, Portland State is just a leader in this area. It's already quite a number of years ago that I came here to visit and to talk to Noha Tulan to find out how in the world did you put this together, and how did you keep track of 15 funding sources and get all of them to come together at the same time to be able to build that gorgeous building. And since then, of course, Portland State has done other projects very much like that, and we will see more of that in the future. We will be looking at it for whatever new buildings we need, the business school, new student housing, and further expansions to accommodate all this tremendous growth we have had here in the past few years. Now, another part of resources, of course, is to use the ones you have efficiently and effectively. And in a way, I listened to a quote from Barack Obama this morning driving in on public radio, and he said that on the first day that he is president, he will go through the federal budget page by page, item by item, and line by line, and get rid of all the programs that no longer work and replace them with programs that do. And of course, he got a great round of applause for that. I don't think that works. I don't think he's going to do it either. I haven't even gone through the university budget page by page and line by line yet. When you've been underfunding an institution for so many years, the idea that you're going to squeeze out significant amounts of dollars by, pushing things harder and making people work harder or whatever, that doesn't make sense. That's not where the big savings are. It's perhaps even the other way around, that we need to find resources to invest so that we can do the job that we have to do twice as well and twice as effectively, because we may not have had the resources to do it well. Imaging, of course, is a key example of that. By doing imaging, it's not going to be cheaper. We're not going to, lay off 20 people because now we image. No, we probably need to hire some new people who know how that works. But we will be able to also save many of you a lot of time because you no longer have to run around paperwork and lose paperwork and so on. I saw some of the offices that our student affairs and business affairs people work, and it's a miracle that they're able to keep track of anything. It is truly Dickensian. It is Dickensian. It's a disgrace. And it's not because people aren't trying hard, but because we don't have the resources to give them the adequate space, the adequate facilities, and to give them the technological resources to work well. But we also know that things happen and they stay that way because we sort of forget to change them. The story that I like to tell, some of you have heard this, is that on my first day here, I was taken around, you know, to do what new employees do. You get your parking pass, you get your ID card, you get your email account set up, and so on. So I got to the ID desk and filled out some form, and the woman working there said, that'll be $12. And I said, what? She said, well, it's $12 for an ID card. I said, you mean, I said, I didn't, it isn't that I lost it. You know, it's a new one. This is my first day. I said, sorry, it's $12. I thought about being a real SOB, but I decided, so I gave her the $12. And after that, there were lots of apologies because somebody was supposed to have fixed it so the president wouldn't have to pay $12. It's not about the president not paying $12. The president can handle it. It's a person we've just hired in a job where we pay him $12 an hour, or the young assistant professor. So then I asked, why? Well, X many years ago, we had to buy a new machine to laminate the cards, and there was no money to laminate the cards, so we instituted this fee. So I asked, well, how much money do we generate per year? Well, after a couple days, I found out it was a little bit less than $10,000. So I'm very glad to know that Vice President DeRoche has found somewhere in the budget $10,000 so we can get rid of the $12 fee. I hope that all of you will join me in finding those things. And again, Lindsay's being a good soul because, you know, it's not about anybody messing up or doing anything wrong. It's just about stuff that happens in any large organization. And after a while, people say, oh, well, this is just the way it is. This is welcome to PSU or welcome to UIC or welcome to UB. It's everywhere. But so let's get mindful. And we may well start a big project. My colleague Ed Ray at OSU has done that, where he formed teams with faculty and students to just think about our business processes and get better about it. But it is, again, back to this notion of let's all rededicate ourselves to really thinking about how we can make this institution even better, because we all have things that we can do that do not require any money or a lot of money that will make us a better place. Now, when Stephen Epler recruited new faculty 62 years ago, he wrote to several of them and said, please join me, but as you know, we're starting from nothing. We're no longer starting from nothing. We have 120,000 alumni, 27,000 students, 3,500 faculty and staff, a budget of about $370 million. We have all these rankings in U.S. News & World Report, and faculty winning awards, and students going off and doing well. This truly is a place that is ready for glory. The expectations are very high, and with your help, I mean to meet them. Thank you very much.
Told you. Okay, so that concludes First, thank you, President Wiewel, for that inspiring speech. I knew it would be that way. I want to thank you all for joining us this morning as a standing room only crowd. We do, though, this is sort of what happens when guests stay a little bit too long. We need to vacate this room really quickly because this is the same room that we're going to use for the symposium this afternoon, and we have to reorganize all the tables and stuff. So thank you very much. I look forward to all of you who will join us this afternoon at the symposium. And if you can't make the symposium, don't forget we do have a reception later on this afternoon. Looks like the weather's going to cooperate. So again, thanks very much.